we moved the UK's biggest newspaper to WordPress
Oh wow.
back in 2014. I think for a time it was the highest traffic WordPress site in the world when it launched.
News UK?
Um,
News UK?
yeah, we moved the
Okay.
Sun originally.
Okay.
Now all of their stuff's on WordPress, which is great. But at the time, I mean, that was 2014, 2015, so that was actually technically really challenging.
From humble WordPress beginnings to building platforms that power global newsrooms, governments, and billion-dollar brands, today's guest has helped redefine what open source can do at enterprise scale. Welcome to WP Legends. I'm Gautam, co-founder of Seahawk Media, and today I'm joined by Tom Wilmot, co-founder and CEO of Human Made, a world-renowned WordPress agency trusted by brands like Google, TechCrunch, Capgemini, News UK, USA Today, NASA, the United Nations, and many, many more. Tom began working with WordPress in the mid 2000s and saw early on that it wasn't just a blogging tool. It was an open, scalable foundation that could power the future of digital publishing. The vision led to Human Made, a globally distributed team of engineers, strategists, open source contributors, and more. Under Tom's leadership, Human Made has done everything from replatforming entire media networks to helping global organizations embrace editorial workflows. The team has also launched Altus, a next generation enterprise WordPress hosting solution. Today, we'll explore how Tom helped turn WordPress into an enterprise ready solution, what Human Made has learned from working with some of the most demanding brands in the world, and how AI, headless, and open architecture are shaping the next chapter for WordPress. Tom, welcome to WP Legends. Let's go to the beginning.
Wow. It's great to be here. What an intro. That was incredible. I don't know
Thank
whether
you.
you're available to hire as a hype man, but I could do with that at the beginning of all my calls.
Thank you. I've been told this before, so I will take this as a compliment. I do take
Yeah.
a lot of pride in research, in my research, and to get to know the person because I know you're spending your time and spending my time. So I think it's
I
good to know.
appreciate
And
it.
I discovered new things like Altus.
Sure.
Wow,
There
I
you
didn't
go.
know about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe there you go. Maybe that's a sign we need to talk about it more.
Yeah, I want to know first your beginnings, like the very, very
Sure.
early time, you meeting the
Yeah.
co-founder of WordPress, all of that. Let's start there. I would love to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm a self-taught web developer.
Oh,
Really as a teenager, maybe 15, 16 or something. I was a bit of a computer geek, like many of us, and was teaching myself Dreamweaver and Illustrator and
yeah.
right at the beginning, there was kind of the CSS web standards movement was happening at the time. So I got a little bit swept up in that. And actually, my dad at the time, he saw me doing this as a bit of a hobby, and he said if I made him a website for his company and sold anything, that he'd give me 10% of anything I could sell. So that was the motivation to build something. And I think I discovered WordPress probably pretty early on in that in that like self-taught
Yes, you did.
period.
Yes,
Yeah,
you did.
which was very fortunate. And so I didn't work in web straight away. I worked in a school actually.
Oh,
Initially, I was in education,
wow.
private education. And special needs education. And then yeah, a couple of years after doing that, I started freelancing on the side, and things just kind of spiraled from there, really. I mean, I think quite a common story from that era where I was self-taught, building websites for family, friends, friends of friends, and eventually real companies. And the web was growing and WordPress was growing and everyone needed a website and few people had them. So there was,
This is
and
before
I,
2010. This is when you started
yeah, yeah,
and then family
absolutely. I
friends.
mean, this would be, I mean, I started I had my first site in certainly like 2003, 2004. I don't think I discovered WordPress until maybe 2005, 2006. And then I was like earning money on the side 2008, maybe 2007.
Oh, wow.
And then we
Okay.
founded Human Made in 2010, and I'd been working full time as just an independent contractor for a couple of years before we
Yes.
founded Human
I
Made.
think I think everybody starts out like Seahawk, like our agency, we started like 7, 8 years ago. But everybody starts
Yeah,
out with friends and family references. I
yeah,
think that's how it is.
exactly. Yeah,
But
yeah.
they
I'm
are
very
one of the.
grateful to those.
I
Yeah,
am grateful, but they're one of the most challenging people to work with. Also, if you know
definitely.
what I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
because
yeah. No, totally. Yeah, get rid of them as quickly as possible
I
and move to
know.
some real clients.
That I know, but I'm very, very grateful, and I still remember my first 5 or 10 projects, as I'm sure you would also,
Yeah,
even though they
yeah,
were like minuscule to what we all do now, but that's crazy.
totally.
So tell me, like, how and when did you pivot to enterprise? So at that time, you were doing 1,000, 2,000, $500 projects also. I'm
Yeah.
sure, but what made it? You the decision to go to just enterprise and just stay with enterprise.
I would put this down really to I made a decision. I was making websites for friends and family. Yeah, a lot of that was just static HTML, CSS websites.
Hmm.
I started using WordPress, and I decided I like changed my website to call myself a WordPress developer instead of a web developer. And quite quickly, again, this must have been 2007, say.
Mhm.
I got an inquiry from a large US company in the US who were
Mhm.
wanting to use WordPress to
Mhm.
build a bunch of really big sites.
Mhm.
And they were struggling to find WordPress developers. There weren't many of us at that time,
Yeah.
advertising ourselves as web developers. And so I think it's just like very fortunate timing and a little bit, I wasn't really a very good WordPress developer, but I got so a little bit of a little bit of overconfidence or something meant that I got involved in these. We built like a bunch of big like geek.com and cars.com and
Yep.
yachting.com, a bunch of quite big sites like very early on WordPress, quite complicated. They were like niche social networking sites.
Yep.
And so we built a lot of like custom development. And so then a couple of years later when I started Human Made, we kind of already had this portfolio of large sites on WordPress,
I
which was
see.
very unusual back then. There weren't many people who had experience working on
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
sites. And so
Yeah.
that meant then that when other big companies or customers were looking to do something large with WordPress and they would look around, inevitably they found us because we were one
And
of the
you are not
few with
working on
experience.
Drupal or Magentos and all of that?
No,
Wow.
no,
That's pretty cool.
already at that point, already by the time we started Human Made, we were WordPress only, and we started getting involved in the WordPress community in the UK, attending. There were like small WordCamps back then that we were attending. Of course, Mike Little, the co-founder of WordPress, is from the UK, and so I'd met him and some
Hmm.
other kind of influential early people, and yeah, fell in love with the community and
Yeah.
with the power of WordPress. I mean, it was a really exciting time back then to be a WordPress developer. We had, custom post types was like a new feature, and there was just like a lot of stuff that the breakthroughs of that era
And
enabled.
Gutenberg did not exist. Page builders
No,
were just starting up and
yeah, yeah,
buggy. There's so much
yeah.
happening. I don't even
Yeah,
know.
and there was a lot of
I
custom development necessary.
don't
It was hard to scale WordPress to
Yeah.
millions of unique visitors and stuff, and so that was, it was necessary to work with some really experienced
Got it.
developers.
And
Yeah,
so tell me about WordPress VIP. I think that was born in 2013, 2014, and you've been part of that from.
we were one of the launch partners with VIP. That I mean that was I think a really great
Hmm.
for the ecosystem for originally actually that started as like a WordPress.com kind of VIP blogging tier
Yeah,
for some of the larger bloggers who were using WordPress.com and needed a more white glove service because they were pulling a lot of traffic.
got it.
And then companies also then were starting to want to use WordPress, and so they ended up finding their way to VIP too, and so they started this partner program with I think we were one of maybe there's only two agencies outside of the US in that first
Got it.
uh, launch group. And yeah, I mean, the next several years for us were really just growing in tandem with WordPress generally. WordPress just grew every year, right, for that whole decade.
Totally.
And VIP2, the enterprise space was really growing rapidly, and so
Yeah.
we were able to really take advantage of that. Yeah.
I am curious to know. Okay, I was very excited about this interview with you, because
Yeah,
I'll tell you why. Obviously, we make a lot of websites. Well, our sites are like volume, like they're in a different league
sure.
together.
Yeah.
My curiosity is like, how would you classify the word enterprise? Is it basis on value, a challenge,
Mm.
or something which nobody has ever accomplished? Like, explain to me in your words, what do you classify as enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, I find that your world is also very different to mine, so I find that fascinating. Of
No.
course, the idea of doing what we do at volume scares me. So
Yeah.
that's fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What does enterprise mean? Actually that's changed over the years. In the early days, back when I was starting in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, it was just hard to get WordPress to scale to high traffic, and it was
Mm,
hard to keep it secure.
mm,
And it was hard to build the kind of features that maybe an editorial team of 15 people using the website all at the same time or something.
that's right.
And so enterprise back then actually just meant like big, serious website, really.
I see.
And yeah, these days I think it's not particularly hard to scale WordPress. WordPress is
Mm,
performant. All of the hosts can run it at pretty good scale. So, a lot
mm,
of those basics actually are solved problems now. And so I think really enterprise now for us, these are big, complicated organizations with complicated compliance, a lot of like complicated internal
mm.
process and workflow and expectation and other systems, and they want to use open source and they want to benefit from the benefits of WordPress, the power of WordPress. But how do they fit that into their
Yeah.
complex environment? And actually, that is where I think a lot of our experience is. The actual WordPress work we're doing, I think, has
Yeah.
become more commoditized. It used to be that only we could do it. Now, a lot of WordPress developers can do work at that level, but maybe
Mm.
they don't have experience with the enterprise compliance and the development workflows that they need, and the long sales cycles and the complex account management and project management and all of that you need to kind of wrap around um,
Got it.
that work.
Is
Yeah.
is it is it one of your challenging projects which led you to the creation of your hosting company, Altus also? Is it because of that?
Yeah, that was
I'm assuming that. I think it
yeah,
must
it
be one of
was.
your
Yeah.
projects. Tell me about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, a little bit of a confluence of things, I'd say. We'd kind of always hosted some of the most complicated stuff
Mm,
that required, a custom hosting setup.
mm,
Also, I think something that was happening in the industry, the wider industry, like the non-WordPress enterprise CMS space, we've had this shift from CMSs to DXPs,
mm.
which really, it's a kind of buzzwordy thing. It really just meant marketing teams need their CMS to do more than just content management. There's these other things now that they need,
Like millions of
personalization.
users logging in together or something like that.
Right, and they're tracking user data, and they need to use that to personalize the visitor experience on the website, or they've got complicated asset management, or they're doing e-commerce. There's these
Sure.
other pieces now. The marketing teams are having to do more, and the what we saw was that the other players in the enterprise CMS space, Sitecore and Adobe and Optimizely and
Yes.
whatnot,
Yeah.
Drupal, I think also were evolving. They were kind of evolving to into calling themselves DXPs, and there was this bit of a period actually where like the everyone was trying to shift to using that. Okay, we're DXPs. You need to buy a DXP. And we were a bit worried, I think, actually, that WordPress was not going to be able to make that jump. And we were noticing when we were in sales pitches, people were starting to talk about DXPs. They were starting to talk about personalization, and WordPress didn't really have that language. It didn't really have ready to go
Yeah.
solutions to some of those things. And so Altis was born out of our experience of hosting stuff already, but also this kind of desire to innovate a bit on the DXP side. Yeah.
Got it. So what would you say is been one of your most challenging projects? Challenging, not difficult, challenging, I
Challenging.
would say.
Yeah. Um,
You've got a
I mean, I
massive portfolio. So in your words, I would like.
yeah, a lot of, and a lot of different challenges, right? Of course, there are just like raw technical challenges. I think one that stands out for us, we moved the UK's biggest newspaper to WordPress
Oh wow.
back in 2014. I think for a time it was the highest traffic WordPress site in the world when it launched.
News UK?
Um,
News UK?
yeah, we moved the
Okay.
Sun originally.
Okay.
Now all of their stuff's on WordPress, which is great. But at the time, I mean, that was 2014, 2015. So that was actually technically really challenging. There was definitely like whispered conversations on our side. I mean, don't tell the client this. Like, is this possible? How are we going to actually even handle this kind of traffic? It pushed the bar, I think, of WordPress at scale. So I think that was kind of a watershed technical. And then I think on the other side, we work with one of the world's biggest banks, Standard Chartered. And so, that's not got the scale of traffic that a national newspaper has. But what it does have is, marketing teams across tens of countries,
Security, compliance,
yeah,
I'm sure.
500 people logging into the CMS, editing all different parts of the website, like a
Yeah,
lot of just organizational complexity, a lot of
true.
compliance. And we've been working for them for nearly a decade now.
Wow.
I think something like 95% of all their web traffic, even their mobile apps messaging, runs through this WordPress platform.
Oh, wow. That's
So
pretty
I
cool.
think that's one of the most like enterprise WordPress platforms out
Yeah.
there, to be honest. Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
in your words, and this, by the way, I ask everybody, but I think your answer
Sure.
would be most exciting. It's like, where do you think WordPress is going in the next 5 years? Not two, not 10. Consider the world of Webflows and Framer and
Sure.
Lovable. Everybody's talking about Lovable since their last raise of 180 million.
Yeah.
People are building CRMs every
Yeah.
minute on Lovable.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
heard the other day somewhere on TikTok, somebody was saying there are more than 1,000 people building their own CRM on Lovable every day. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Wait,
Wild. Yeah.
so where do you
I
think
mean,
WordPress?
it's such a fascinating question. I mean, this CRM anecdote, I see that being quite true for like a significant portion of the SaaS space, right? That there's been this
No,
era of SaaS products where you
project
can
management.
basically, right, you can build a kind of nice front end to what is essentially a spreadsheet or something behind the scenes, and that's a SaaS product. It seems like that's going to be heavily disrupted by AI because now people can
Yes,
just build their own so easily.
yes,
Um,
yes.
so quite, yeah, that quite what that looks like. It's not clear to me that that's going to be exactly the same for CMS and web. And I think
Of course
actually,
not.
WordPress serves such a broad spectrum of use cases.
It
I
does.
think there's probably like not a one size fits all answer there. Like I really can see some of these AI web builders disrupting the kind of lower end long tail
Hmm.
of WordPress quite a bit, right? WordPress is really going to need to respond there from a user experience point of view. If I can go
Hmm.
to a Lovable or to one of the SaaS competitors to WordPress, and I can use AI to spin up a website, that's going to be a much faster experience than like dragging blocks around or whatever
Of course.
at the moment. So that I think that's like one whole area. Of course, that like these AI builders are like much less of a threat at the enterprise space, right? The Standard Chartered are not going to Lovable and building themselves a website. So that's a totally different set
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
of
I'm pretty
challenges, I
sure
think.
WordPress
Yeah,
is gonna exist. Like Drupal and Magento are still there.
yeah,
Like the Joomla is still there because so legacy and especially with something which is 43% or 45% of the
yeah.
internet, it's not going anywhere. But I
No,
wonder, like, and
yeah,
you actually right, maybe enterprise still needs a lot of hand holding, like a lot.
yeah,
It's a consultative approach and the development all together
yeah.
combined into something, right?
Yeah, and
So
I think where we've seen WordPress really shine in enterprise, and like companies keep coming back to it ultimately, even if they maybe they um, get lured away by one of the proprietary platforms that's maybe innovated in some area more quickly than WordPress does, because innovation can be faster in proprietary.
got it.
Um, I think that uh, we see the enterprise companies coming back to WordPress because really to use it as this like open, reliable kind of central place that they can then integrate everything else into.
True.
And it seems to me like actually, maybe at least the next 5 years of AI is going to be that. It's going to be enterprise companies are going to be adopting AI to speed up processes or replace processes or increase quality or improve some aspect of what they're doing. And they're going to need a really flexible and open CMS that can enable them to integrate all this stuff in and like make use of it. I'm feeling quite bullish for WordPress
Mhm.
in that environment because being open is just such an advantage there.
Yeah.
compared to, I think the proprietary platforms are doing quite a good job of rushing out AI features now, because
And code is
and
becoming stronger. And code is becoming
right,
fun,
exactly.
much,
Yeah, yeah.
at a
But
much
I think
faster
it's
pace.
going to be much harder for it's
Mhm.
going to be much harder for these proprietary platforms to like integrate with everything and do everything.
Yeah.
Whereas WordPress, because it's open, every enterprise user can really bend it to their needs. And I
Mm.
think that's going to become more important in this AI world, actually,
Mm.
rather than less.
Got it.
So yeah, I'm feeling pretty bullish on the enterprise side, and I think on the more kind of consumer user side. I'm most excited about, I think the block editor has like been a hugely positive and exciting step for WordPress.
Yes,
Like
of
I'm
course.
such a believer in Gutenberg in the block editor. Like I actually, I think it's worth just stepping back, for a project of WordPress's age, the fact that it's been able to innovate to that degree. I mean, it's a really massive change
I think so
that late
too.
in its life cycle, 20 years in, and I think that's like really impressive.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
think one of the big downsides of it, it's quite complicated, right? Actually, you get a you
Yeah,
get a
first
new
time
WordPress
users
site.
especially.
You got
Yeah, first
tons
time
of
users.
blocks.
Yeah.
What okay, how do I actually, I've got patterns and blocks and templates, and I don't really get it. And I think that's where AI can be really exciting. I think having like, I can talk to my AI and it can orchestrate all the blocks and patterns and stuff for me. I think that's actually the magic solution to Gutenberg's
Yeah, and I
complicated.
don't think that's far away also now. The way
No, I don't think
the
so.
way
No.
innovation is happening now, I don't think it's very far away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, now
Yeah.
I got your answer. I got your answer. So you've been
You
a
know,
remote you've
longer
been
than
a
5 years.
yeah.
Who knows? Will the web still be here? I think it starts to get more difficult.
Oh yeah, I was speaking about the exact same thing, with
Yeah.
somebody else the other day, and they said like and there was a very interesting analogy, and he said like, who was it? I can't even remember. That AI is where the modems were 25 years ago. You remember when you
Yeah.
connected to the internet and that
Yeah.
noise, ting, 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 and then connect to the
Sure.
internet. So AI is there
Yeah.
because and the innovation which is happening, the speed which is, the fiber
Yeah. It's
optics
very
have not
fast.
even happened. The
Yeah.
analogy is like
Yeah.
that. So I don't know.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot is happening. But anyways, so have you been a remote company always, or did you ever have an office in the UK?
We did it like right at the beginning. So actually, it's me and my brother Joe, who founded Human Made. A lot of people just don't know he's my brother, but he actually is.
Okay, wow. Okay.
So there you go, exclusive for the podcast.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so we founded the company. Yeah, we and the first 4 people or so were in office with us. Um, but we lived in the middle of nowhere in the UK, like in a rural town, and so there wasn't a huge hotbed of enterprise WordPress talent locally,
Got
and
it.
so we started hiring remotely quite early on.
Oh, that's
Um,
amazing. And then you moved from
yeah,
UK to France. You live in
I moved from the
north of
UK to
France.
France, and Noel joined as a partner, and he's in Switzerland. And we hired a couple of early key hires for us were based in the US and South America.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, from that point on, we really hired everywhere.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's very natural, right? We were already a big part of the WordPress community and the WordPress open source project, and that is a distributed
True.
community.
Yeah.
And so the way that we worked when we were kind of contributing to core or being a part of the project or the community, most of that actually just translated over into how we ran the company anyway. We had the same approach because that's what we knew.
True.
And so
True.
that then worked, quite well. And there were pioneers ahead of us. You got Automatic, obviously, and GitLab and some other kind of fairly big companies that have been remote that we've been able to learn from.
Got it.
Um,
Got it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
where do you think headless is going? Because there's been so much chatter about it over the past so many years, but it's not
Yeah.
getting picked up or the love which it should have. I don't know. Like, what's your opinion about that headless CMS?
I mean, we run into it a lot at the enterprise level. I think it's what we've seen in the enterprise space. It's been through a little bit of a kind of peak, and then perhaps it's like
Mm,
in the trough of disillusionment at the moment, or maybe coming out of that. I think we saw there was like an initial flurry of it being like oversold a bit as the solution to everything,
I
and so a
see.
lot of big companies moved to headless as like the next thing, and then they didn't maybe see all of the benefits that they were hoping.
I see.
Um, and it comes with complexity, especially at the enterprise level where, you know, headless by definition, then you have got, multiple different systems, multiple different teams.
True.
And so over time that can bring more complexity. And so if anything, I think we've seen the just like the amount of times where clients are coming to us and saying we want headless, we've seen that go down a little bit actually.
Wow.
And now they've got a little bit more of a nuanced view. Maybe they want like a hybrid architecture. Maybe they're using headless for the parts of the site where it makes most sense. They want like a really interactive user experience or something. But for the like standard publishing side of the site, it's not worth the additional complexity.
I see.
I think also early on there were some quite nice performance advantages to going headless. You could use a front end JavaScript framework or something, and you could make a really fast user experience. Actually,
Yeah.
the block editor has brought a lot of that stuff to core, and so some of those advantages I think have eroded a little bit as well. That said, it's still like a big part of the work we do. I would just say the most common now is this hybrid, is more of a hybrid approach where they're using that they've got some decoupled experiences. But
Yeah.
maybe the more traditional parts of the site.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, a good example actually. News UK is a good example where we that was a kind of monolithic traditional build originally, moved headless,
Wow. Okay.
and is then moving back to monolith. So that they're these cycles, I think, too, as people figure out where actually are the advantages and the benefits. Yeah,
Disadvantages. Yeah,
yeah,
you're right. You're absolutely right. But again, time will be a testament to
yes,
see what happens over there. And I was
yeah,
another note. I was looking at your LinkedIn this morning, and I noticed something, and it said Scale Consortium. And then I went to the site,
yeah.
and like, so why don't you tell our audiences what's this all
Sure.
about? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so um, WordPress, particularly in the enterprise space,
Hmm.
like I think has a pretty big challenge when it comes to competing for marketing, like at the marketing level versus these proprietary platforms. Most of the other CMS, enterprise CMS options that our customers could choose are like single vendor. And so there's one vendor and they've got a really clear message, and they can send a sales team in and they can deliver a really
Yes.
coherent pitch. And the challenge we have in the WordPress space is that there is no single vendor. You've got hosting companies, you've got agencies, you've got plugins, you've got the core software, and the experience an enterprise customer is going to have comes out of some kind of combination of all of those.
Of course.
And so, whereas when we all collaborate on the technology and I think create something bigger than the sum of our parts, right? I think WordPress is better than anything that
That's
we
why your
could do
website
individually.
mentions, that's why it says why WordPress security,
Right,
performance, cost of
right.
ownership, third party
Yeah.
resources.
Yeah, so it's no question. Technologically, we're greater than the sum of our parts.
Hmm.
But I think in terms of like market presence, positioning, marketing, we're actually like less than the sum of our parts at the enterprise level. Actually, WordPress is really dominant in enterprise. Actually, it's an amazing solution for enterprise customers. Some of the big, a lot of the biggest companies in the world use WordPress, but you wouldn't necessarily know that actually. If you go and talk to the analysts who are really influential in enterprise decision making, WordPress doesn't show up as strongly as it should do, given how widely it's used.
NASA,
And I think
I
that's
didn't know.
because, right, NASA uses it, the White House, most of the big newspapers, like it
Yeah.
just has such strong penetration. And the problem and the reason for that is that, well, you've got all of the hosting companies doing their own marketing, you've got all the agencies doing our own marketing. But who's marketing WordPress to enterprise?
That's true.
No one.
That's good
No
point.
one's doing that. Yeah.
Good point. Good
And
point.
so that's something we've been like aware of and fighting against, and everyone kind of carries a little bit of that load, right? Okay, when we go to pitch a client, we have to pitch them that WordPress is a good CMS for them to choose versus Adobe's Experience Cloud or Sitecore. And we have to pitch them that Human Made is a good agency for them to hire. So we have to do two jobs.
That's pretty
Um,
cool. I love it.
yeah.
That's why
And
you
so,
collaborated with the Codeco, RTCam, Side,
right.
and the
Yeah, so
others.
we came together kind of recognizing this problem, and so the Scale Consortium was formed really to try to work towards solving that a bit. And so we pool the resources that we would individually be putting towards marketing WordPress to enterprise customers. We try to pool those resources, and we try to have like consistent messaging
I like it.
and
Yeah.
yeah, put out reports. An example of something we're doing is we do an annual state of enterprise WordPress survey, and we all send that to all of our customers, and post that on all of our socials, and we collate and share the data and produce a report that goes out from the Scale Consortium. So yeah, those kinds of initiatives where there's a lot of benefit to all working together and trying to just like raise the tide for all boats, or whatever the saying is.
That's pretty cool. I like it. It's very
Yeah.
impressive. It will actually help you all to close
Yes.
deals, maybe not necessarily faster, because I know enterprise can have very, very long sales cycles. Could be
It
6 months,
can.
could be 3 years, who knows, but
Yeah.
I totally get it. But hopefully it can, the word messaging which you used, yes, I think that becomes easier
Yeah.
even, and because you're using the same messaging, I believe, when you're pitching customers then, because
We try to use the same messaging. We can
yeah,
point back to the Scale Consortium as like a source of unbiased information,
true.
because it's not coming from any one agency or host. There's also this problem, where actually a lot of the competitors to WordPress are putting out comparison pages.
True.
Why is Sitecore better than WordPress or something? And so actually, a lot of those show up on Google. If you are searching for information about WordPress as an enterprise CMS, often you will find opposition pages from the competitors are the things that come up, because WordPress itself is not really putting out, the same kind of stuff. And so, yeah, that's we're hoping we can solve that. We've also there is now an enterprise section on the main WordPress.org website as well, which we contributed towards to creating. That didn't used to exist. There's now WordPress.org/enterprise, which means that at least that comes up. If you're searching for WordPress Enterprise, that's now
I
the
see.
top result,
I
which
see.
which
I
is
think
important.
it's a very smart move, and the word enterprise also becomes more popular then. I can see the
Yeah.
WP VIP Stanley Cup. Is that like a co-branded WP VIP Cup?
It is, yeah, yeah. It's a great
Wow.
cup. Shout
Good.
out to our friends at VIP. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Only the reserved few get. I have some friends at WordPress. I'm gonna get my
Yeah,
cup.
well, you want to hit them up for a good cup.
We're just coming up on time, so I have some fun
Sure.
questions for you.
Okay.
Are you planning to visit any WordCamp this year, next year? Any plans for any events?
Unfortunately, I won't be at WordCamp US, which is a shame. I actually had a good time last year in Portland.
Yeah. And the
Um,
coffee was really good in Portland, I must say.
Coffee
One
was
of the
good.
best.
The coffee was
I think one
good,
of
and
the
some
best.
good food as well. Yeah, some good
Yes,
food.
yes, yes.
Some good parties. I mean, I'll definitely be. I'm hoping to go to Asia this year, actually. So that I
Oh
haven't been
my.
to WordCamp Asia. So yeah, I'm really
Okay.
looking forward to
Oh, have
that.
you been to
Yeah.
India? Have you been to India before?
Yeah. No, I haven't actually. No.
No way. So you must go. I insist. Take
Yeah.
your family also,
Okay.
make a vacation out of it as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and you will love the hospitality, the incredible food. If you're going to go to
Mm,
WordCamp Asia, which is going to be in Mumbai, and I'm telling this to all of my audiences because a lot of people don't know about WordCamps, or they've heard about them, they've never visited them.
sure.
The
Yeah.
big three, the US, the Europe, and Asia ones, how powerful are they? The
Yeah,
conversations that
they're
you have.
so powerful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think if you're in any way involved in WordPress, you kind of have to visit at least one of them once just to get a sense of the size and vibrancy of this global community. Like
The
it's
WordCamp
impossible
team,
to,
the
yeah,
WordCamp team needs to hire me as their brand evangelist because
yeah. Well, if you can do it like the intro to this call, then I think I agree. Yeah,
Yeah, I try to go to every single WordCamp, no matter
yeah.
what, and sometimes the last one, which was in Basel, like I just took a
Mm,
small vacation out of it. I just took my wife and my baby.
that's
We
a
had
good
a
way to do it.
small
Yeah,
trip and just visited there. Took my daughter to WordCamp also for an hour. She went, got
amazing.
all her swag and boots. So that was fun.
Yeah, yeah,
So that
yeah.
was
Oh, I mean,
great.
I do love the small ones too. I try to still go to a small
Yeah.
one a couple of times a year. The 50 to 100 people word camps. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
actually,
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
lot of where WordPress comes from,
I- I- I'll
and
tell
how
you a
a lot of new
secret.
people are brought in.
I'll tell you a secret. I'll tell you a
Go
secret.
on.
My at Seahawk Media, my
Yeah.
biggest ever contract was came out of a tiny WordCamp in Boston in 2019.
Wow. There we
Yes,
go.
our biggest ever
Amazing.
contract. Yeah, so never underestimate the power of
Yeah.
WordCamps, So you just
Yeah.
because
That's
you just
very
never
true.
know. You just never know.
Very cool.
Yeah. So tell me something besides ChatGPT, what other AI tools are your favorite right now? Are you working on SaaS tools, AI tools besides ChatGPT? So many.
Yeah, I'm using
So
ChatGPT a
many.
bunch. For
Okay, good.
sure. I'm using Cursor a bunch. I don't get to, I started as a developer, right? And so that was
Yep.
one of the, I love being CEO and I love building a company, but I do miss building things. And so I love this whole vibe coding breakthrough, because it means I can finally like build things again,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
though I
yeah.
definitely am no longer a developer.
My
No,
co-founder
yeah.
Ryan. my co-founder Ryan, he has been logged in for vibe coding and he's just vanished off Slack, WhatsApp, face
Yeah.
of the earth. He said, I need to just do it. And I
He's
think I
plugged
agree
in.
with him
Yeah.
because if
Yeah.
you're vibe coding, you can't do anything else. It's
Sure. That's
impossible.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
really need to lock in,
Yeah. Yeah.
with some a
Yeah.
lot
I've
of
lost some
calories.
evenings and weekends to that for sure.
Yeah. And are you a coffee or
Yeah.
a tea person?
I'm
Or
a big coffee person. Tends to be I just wake up and drink a lot of black coffee and then I'm done for the day.
same.
That's yeah, that
Same.
locks me in.
You can talk to me. If I was not in the WordPress space, I would probably
Yeah.
be owning a bunch of cafes. I can
Okay,
talk
that's
to you
cool.
about
Yeah.
hand brews and espressos day in
Yeah.
and out, day in
Yeah.
and out. So
Okay,
that's
well,
pretty
we'll have
cool.
to share a good coffee. I'll give one other AI tool shout out. Actually, I've been using Granola for meeting minutes and recording.
Wow,
That's the best one I found. I've tried like literally everyone, and I think that's the best. So
awesome.
uh, I'll
And
recommend that
and
to
and,
everybody.
and what are your favorite WordPress plugins? In could be anything, forum, site optimization, you name it.
Yeah,
Funny.
I'm a bad person to ask that question to, I think, unfortunately, because I'm not a big WordPress plugin user. It's one
I
of the
know, I
it's
know you don't.
one of the like an aspect of the WordPress enterprise space that I think is ripe for some change. There just really aren't many plugins actually that are used by the enterprise agencies. Full
You might
stop.
be right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
There's a small handful, WooCommerce, Yoast, Gravity Forms. You tend to see those,
Mhm.
but actually, yeah, mostly the enterprise agencies are not really using WordPress plugins that much. So if you're a WordPress plugin developer, I think there's like a big untapped market there.
Oh, I think so also. I
Yeah,
think so also. There's so many WordPress plugin founders who I've been interviewing, who I
yeah,
know I met in the past several years on in WordCamps, like, and if you're doing good work, like it will explode 100%. Especially
yeah.
especially if there's a freemium model to it, because
Yeah, yeah,
you get so
yeah,
much
yeah.
mileage.
But I think, this kind of like an enterprise tier where you can get a bit of like enterprise support,
Yeah,
or something. I think that would go a long way actually to making enterprise customers feel a bit more comfortable
got
using
it.
plugins.
So
Yeah.
besides human made, Altis and Scale, is there anything else you want to tell our viewers about? Anything else working in the
No, that keeps me pretty busy.
background? Of course.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty active on Twitter and LinkedIn, so people can check me out there. I'm just
Awesome.
at Tom Wilmot on both.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on WP Legends. It was great to have you on my show. I hope to see you at WordCamp, either the Poland one, which is in Europe, or the Mumbai
Yeah,
one. Or if I take the Eurostar, I'll hit you up and
hit
maybe
me
we
up.
can
Yeah,
have
we'll
a
grab
hand
a
brew.
coffee.
Yes, we can have a hand brew coffee. Thank you so
Perfect.
much,
Well,
Tom.
thanks very much for the invite. I've really enjoyed the conversation,
Me
and
too. Me too.
I'm still appreciating that intro even now at the end.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
See you around, Katam.